Hello, welcome to Suspend YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking or discussing another powerful AWS service known as Elastic Kubernetes Service, also known as Amazon EKS. This is a fully managed Kubernetes cluster infrastructure that can allow you to provision an EKS cluster, connect to it, and simply deploy your application or your web app without needing to manually create an infrastructure without needing to manage a server by yourself. And this process can happen in just two or in just three quick steps of provisioning the cluster, connect to the cluster, and running your Kubernetes apps. AWS or Amazon has made it easier for developer or DevOps engineers to deploy their application um, with less stress. Of course, to set up a Kubernetes cluster can be very tedious. So, but with the aid of Elastic Kubernetes service offered by Amazon, you can easily set up your Kubernetes cluster by just the click of your mouse. So in this video, we are going to walk through certain agenda. And here we are going to be looking at what is Amazon EKS. We're going to briefly discuss the architecture of Amazon EKS. Then we are going to talk about what are the requirements needed to set up Amazon EKS. And then we are also going to look at the add-ons that needed to be configured along with your cluster so that your cluster can function uh, as it's supposed to function. So if you look at this structure, I actually got it from AWS documentation. It simply describe the architecture of EKS, how it works. If you look at the first block here, which is the control plane, is being managed by AWS. So AWS will take care of everything you see inside this plane, from the scheduler to control manager to kube API to your ECD. Everything in this block will be managed by Amazon. Why? What you have here, your node, your kubelets are going to be managed by the customer or by the user. So if you look at the architecture here, this is the whole cluster containing the control plane. The control plane will be controlling the nodes. So Amazon will be taking care of this control plane while you, the user, will take care of the node. So when it comes to update of the node, when it comes to management of the version on the node, it is being controlled by the user or by the customer, as the case may be, while the control plane is being handled by um, AWS. Now, AWS just launched another version of EKS that is called the EKS Auto Mode. We're going to talk briefly about it when we get to that stage, and I'm going to make another video to explain what is a EKS Auto Mode. I also have a little information here that can help you understand each component of the API cluster. You can take your time to go through it. What is your kubectl tool? What is your API server, the control manager, scheduler, kubelet, and all that. This is just a simple layman interpretation of all of those items. You can take your time to look through them. Then we are going to go all over to our AWS console and see how we can uh, configure or set up Amazon EKS cluster. But before you go there, let me quickly explain what we uh, understand by Amazon EKS Auto Mode. Now, if you look at this um, architecture on the screen, this is the traditional EKS cluster, the one we just explained just now, where um, Amazon will manage that one you see in the pink. I think that is a pink color in the pink box. If you look right underneath, it says manage control plane. So this section is being managed by AWS. Why? If you look at the other one here at the right top that says the one inside the light blue, it says customer account. Why customer will control everything here from the carpenter to the EKS identity to cool proxy and your EC2 server, your volumes, all will be, controlled by the customer. That is how the traditional EKS works. That just like the one we're about to configure. But like I mentioned earlier, um, AWS has come up with another version of EKS that is called EKS Auto Mode. In that case, AWS is taking over more responsibility in the management of the EKS cluster. And I can quickly show you another architecture that shows that. So if you look at this architecture, just once again, this is the area that AWS is managing, while the customer is left to manage every other thing here. But in the auto mode, if you look at the auto mode, AWS has extended its control. Now AWS help you manage API server, manage the control plane up to your storage and compute. And the update is done every 21 days to update to the latest version as to make sure your cluster are running efficiently. While customer will just be left to manage the application, the load balancer, the EBS volume, and the networking. So it's a fantastic solution that's just been provided by AWS. But today we'll be setting up the traditional EKS. So let's move on to the AWS console, and I'll walk you through the simple step of creating AWS EKS. So this is my AWS console, and all you just need to do is to search for EKS, or if you just write EKS, it's going to bring it out. Elastic Kubernetes Service. We're going to select that. And all you just need to do is going to take you, if you come in, this is the first page you're going to see. And all you need to do is to click on Create Cluster. So when you get to Create Cluster, you have two options. It's either you do the with EKS Auto Mode, just like the one what I explained just now, or you go to the custom configuration. The EKS Auto Mode is the new version. Of course, you can see it's indicated as new, and it's a fantastic service too. But I'm going to make a separate video on how to set up EKS Auto Mode and how it works. But today we are going to be setting up custom configuration. So I'm going to select custom configuration, and I will go ahead and disable EKS mode. So if I disable EKS mode, then the next thing I'm going to do is from starting my cluster configuration and my cluster name. So I'll just put it as a demo cluster. And the next one is to create ARM role. So you need to create an ARM role that will give permission to your EKS cluster. And if you look right in front of the tab here, there is a recommended role that has been created. So you can just click on that role. And if you click on it, you can see it as pre-configure or pre-selected AWS service. It has selected EKS cluster. And all you just need is to go ahead and click next. And this is the role. If you click on it, you will see all the policy that are required to make your cluster function efficiently has been added here. So all you just need is to click next, and then we're going to give it a name. So I'll just call it EKS underscore role. So I'll just call it EKS role, and I will move on and I will just click create. So the role has been created. I will go back to my EKS cluster. I will refresh and look for that role. This is the role, EKS role, and I select it. I'll move ahead now to Kubernetes version. We have all version here with their different support date. If you look at the standard one, will be like in this case, it's supported up to March 21. And if you look at the extended support, it's supported up to March 21, 2027. So the standard and extended has to do with the pricing, the cost of those of whichever version that you take. So we'll just go with the standard one, and I will go with this version of Kubernetes, which is 1.31, just for this purpose. Then we scroll ahead. Yes, you want to allow cluster admin access. Then we'll go for EKS API here. So we just virtually go with the default settings, and then we'll go on, um, move on. Then the next thing here is the selecting the networking. And the first thing you want to do here is the VPC. Here, this is the default VPC. But if you create VPC, there's something I needed to show you. So let me just open VPC here and I'll show you something. So there is a prerequisite that AWS says must be configured for your EKS cluster to work efficiently. So in your subnet, if you have a subnet and you go to the tag, AWS has made it mandatory that if you look right down here under the tag, let me extend it. Look at this tag. It said you must have a tag named kubernetes.io/role/ELB with the value of 1. And what is this tag meant to do? It enables Kubernetes to create your elastic load balancer in the appropriate subnet. Although we don't really need it to set up the cluster, but whenever you want to provision the node and want to deploy your application, it will enable EKS to know the subnet the um, where the load balancer should be placed. And as a prerequisite, AWS mandated that at least 2 of your subnet must have this tag. So you have to take note of that. But like I said, we don't really need it to set up the cluster. So I will go back to the cluster. So we have 6 subnet. I will just go with all of them, or we can take, if you don't need anyone, we can take them off. But we can just go with all of them. So, and then we go with IP4. And then for the cluster endpoint, we go for both private and public. And we continue. And then we just click next. From here, we are not going to change anything here. And now this is where the add-ons come in. So all these add-ons are needed for the proper functionality or efficient functioning of the cluster. So when you click on this, it has been pre-selected. If you look at those ones that has been checked in the blue boxes, those are the needed plugins to enable your cluster to work efficiently. If you look at it, let me click, just look, if you scroll down, you can see there's nothing here. Let me uncheck one of them and you see what happens. So like this Amazon VPC CIN, this is one that is taking care of the networking. Let me uncheck it. If I uncheck it, then you're going to see look at this error here. It says Amazon VPN will not be installed on the cluster. This may affect your ability to run Kubernetes application. So all of these that has been pre-selected are mandatory requirement to set up your cluster, and so you cannot you can uncheck them. So you have option to add any other thing you want to add. Maybe if you want to add monitoring, you can go down where maybe you have some of them can show any other monitoring plugins. So it is left for you to know what you want and you can add to it. But those that have been pre-selected must be maintained for the efficient functioning of the cluster. So I'll just leave it as default, and then I will click on next, and you can see all the plugins that have been pre-selected are also available here with their different version. You have the option to select whatever version they are. So it is up to you to know the version you want to use. But if we just go ahead with this version, and I will click next. And so this will show you all the details of all of your configuration. You look through it, and if you are okay with it, you go ahead and click on create cluster. So so if you look at right up here, it says it's creating. So this usually take between 12 to 16 minutes for it to be provisioned, for the cluster to be duly set up. So I'm going to pause the video, and when the cluster is created, I'm going to come back and we're going to conclude on the we're going to conclude on our discussion on the cluster. So I will see you in the next few minutes. So after about 16 minutes, the cluster was created, and as you can see it here, this is the cluster, and it says active. And if you look at the right at the top here, it says EK node monitoring agent, COOP proxy, the core DNS, the EK pod identity agent, the metrics, the VPC, and have all been installed on the cluster. So those are the if you remember those plugins that were pre-selected, those are the plugins that have been installed into the cluster onto the cluster. So if you click onto the cluster, so you can see the basic information. If you click on if you go into resources, you will see all the pre-selected plugins that were added at the point of configuration. So if you go under compute, that is where you are supposed to see the node. Don't forget, we have not installed any node here. This is just the cluster, which is the control plane, as the case may be. So so those are the basic information that you can have on this. This is the overview, and let's see if we can get. So this is the cluster. We have this. We have the resource. Okay, this is the pod. There's no pod deployment. We don't have any deployment. We have the core DNS and the metrics. So we can now go ahead now and configure our node. If you click on node here, it says this cluster does not have any node. You don't have the permission to view them. So we can go ahead and add node to this machine and give it appropriate permission so that we can use it. So this is how to create EKS cluster on AWS. You can also automate this process using Terraform. I'm going to do a video on how to create EKS cluster along with the nodes and all the parameters using EKS cluster. So we have come to the end of this short video. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.